In October 2024, the world stopped scrolling. On Tubi, a collection of footage appeared that captured the attention of over 2 million viewers in the first week alone. For decades, these recordings had been hidden, locked away in studio vaults, deemed too raw, too emotional, too human to broadcast. And yet, finally, the public got to witness Red Skelton not just as the comedian who made millions laugh, but as a man revealing his deepest truths. This wasn't just comedy anymore. It was a confessional, a peek into a life of triumph shadowed by heartbreak. Red didn't speak to a fellow performer, a producer, or even an interviewer. He spoke to the camera as if it were his therapist. He spoke with the weight of loss and the wisdom of survival, confessing personal failures, family tragedies, and the hidden burdens of fame. Viewers described it as stepping into someone's diary, reading the pages as they trembled in real time. But why now? Why, after 40 years of keeping this footage under lock and key, did the networks finally decide the world was ready? The answer lies not in timing, but in the humanity of the moments themselves. These weren't staged performances or carefully curated routines. They were intimate, unpolished, and sometimes unbearably emotional. Laughter existed alongside tears, joy collided with grief, and every pause, glance, and twitch carried the weight of a lifetime spent performing in public while suffering in private. Red Skelton, born July 18, 1913, entered the world under a circus tent of tragedy. His father, a clown in the Hagenbeck Circus, passed away just 2 months before his birth. The joy his father brought to audiences never reached home, and that absence carved a silent scar in the heart of a newborn. Red's mother, left with 4 boys and no resources, relied on sheer grit, community kindness, and relentless determination to keep her family alive. They lost their small store, went hungry, and endured the harshest lessons of poverty. But in this crucible, Red discovered a secret weapon: laughter. Not as entertainment, but as survival. By the age of 7, he was selling newspapers on street corners, cracking jokes to coax coins from strangers. By 10, he was juggling odd jobs, delivering ice, carrying cigars, scrubbing laundry, each day a testament to resilience. And each moment of levity, each laugh he drew from strangers, became the foundation of a career that would later make him a household name. Humor was no longer just a shield. It was a language, a lifeline, and a legacy. In this series, we will follow Red's journey from ragged beginnings to national fame, from laughter to heartbreak, from a young boy desperate for survival to an icon whose personal pain shaped every joke. This is not just the story of a clown. This is the story of humanity, expressed through painted smiles, pantomime, and a voice that carried the weight of history. Red Skelton's story begins in a world marked by loss and hardship. Born on July 18, 1913, in a tiny shack in Vincennes, Indiana, Red entered life just 2 months after his father, a circus clown, succumbed to heart failure at 37. The father he would never meet existed only in stories. Stories painted with grease paint and exhaustion. Tales of a man who brought laughter to strangers while his own family endured struggle in silence. Red's mother, left alone to care for 4 boys, faced the brutal realities of poverty. They lost their small store, relying on neighbors' charity just to survive. Ragged clothes, empty stomachs, and the social weight of being the poorest kids in school became Red's early companions. Yet, in this stark environment, he discovered the power of humor. Laughter was not just a distraction, it was a survival tool. A well-timed joke could soften the blows of life, even if only for a moment. By age 7, Red was already on the streets selling newspapers for 3 cents each, cracking jokes to coax coins from passersby. His creativity became a form of currency. He sang, juggled, swept streets, and sometimes begged, all with a flair that drew attention. By 10, he was juggling multiple odd jobs, delivering ice, carrying cigars, scrubbing laundry, walking miles to support his family. He saw firsthand the depths of human struggle. Mothers pawning wedding rings to buy bread, children attending school without shoes, the harsh reality of a life without safety nets. Yet every interaction, every laugh he earned, became a building block for the performer he would one day become. At 10, he made a fateful decision that would shape his entire life. He ran away with a medicine show. Joining Doc Ari Lewis, he spent his summers hawking miracle tonics for a meager $10 a week, sleeping in barns and wagons, sending every penny home to his mother. One night, he tripped on stage, smashing a crate of glass. The audience erupted in laughter. In that moment, he realized something profound. Mistakes could become magic if approached with the right spirit. Over the next 4 years, with the medicine show, Red absorbed everything he could. He learned juggling, pantomime, mimicry, and the art of physical comedy. He became a student of life, observing pain, joy, and human folly. Through it all, he never grew bitter about poverty, failure, or hardship. Instead, he cultivated resilience, transforming scarcity and sorrow into a silent, enduring force that would define both his art and his character. This was a childhood that demanded ingenuity, courage, and humor in equal measure. It was here on the streets and in the wandering shows that Red Skelton began to understand the true purpose of comedy, not to entertain the world, but to survive it, to connect with it, and ultimately, to transcend it. At just 16, Red Skelton had already lived a lifetime most adults could hardly imagine. The streets of Vincennes had taught him resilience, the medicine show had taught him discipline, and yet the world was still waiting to recognize his true genius. Hitchhiking to Chicago with nothing but a suitcase, a dream, and his mother's quiet blessing, Red entered a city alive with the pulse of vaudeville and radio, a playground where talent could transform desperation into applause. Red's first gigs were anything he could get. He performed in dance marathons, walkathons, and small nightclubs, often for mere pennies, always observing, always learning. He joined the Merry Mutes, a silent vaudeville act, and for the first time, he was forced to speak with his body instead of words. He mimed, slipped, tumbled, and transformed himself into characters who communicated pain, joy, and absurdity with a glance, a gesture, or a stumble. Each week, earning just $5, Red discovered a universal truth. Comedy transcends words. Audiences could feel his humanity even without hearing it. By 1931, Red partnered with Bud Jones, and together they added dialogue to their act. Red's impressions of Clark Gable and other stars had audiences roaring with laughter. But when betrayal struck and the partnership collapsed, Red was left not just heartbroken, but without a rhythm, without a partner, without a roadmap. Yet even in failure, he found opportunity. He met Edna Stillwell, an usher with a razor-sharp wit, a mind for comedy, and a pen that could shape his raw talent into gold. They married in 1934, she 13, he 21, and immediately became a creative powerhouse. This was not criticism. This was a revelation, and it was dangerous. His fingers traced the ink, the letters, the curves of Che's handwriting. This was not just a farewell. It was a bomb wrapped in confession. He felt heat rise in his face. Che understood nothing about diplomacy, nothing about political survival, nothing about the delicate tightrope Cuba walked. But then another thought pierced through his temper. Che wrote this because he believed it, because he trusted Fidel enough to tell him the truth, because he could not lie, to Fidel, to himself, to history. Fidel's fury melted into something heavier, a grief he had not expected. He reached the final lines. "If I do not return, do not mourn me. Transform me." Fidel let out a slow breath, his eyes closing. The words felt like a punch to the gut. "If I do not return." And suddenly, everything clicked. The letter, the secrecy, the tone of finality. Che was not leaving temporarily. He was disappearing, possibly forever. Fidel slammed his fist against the desk, shaking the lamp. "Damn it, Che," he whispered, voice breaking. "You always had to choose the hardest path." He stood again, calling out, "Guard." A soldier entered immediately. "Find Che. Bring him here. Now." The guard hesitated, an unmistakable sign that something was wrong. "Commandante," he stuttered. "Che has already departed." Fidel's face drained of color. "What do you mean departed?" "He boarded transport at dawn. Under your signed authorization." "My authorization?" Fidel's voice cracked like thunder. "Yes, Commandante." It was signed by her office. Fidel's mind raced. Who had arranged this? Who had signed in his name? Or had he, without realizing the details, approved a departure buried in bureaucratic papers? He dismissed the guard. When the door closed again, Fidel sank back into his chair. He stared at the letter in front of him. The ink seemed darker now, heavier, as if it carried the finality of a man walking into the unknown. A soft knock sounded again. Then the door opened without waiting for permission. Raul Castro, Fidel's brother, closest advisor, stepped inside. His expression was stern, troubled. "Fidel," Raul said quietly, "I heard Che is gone." Fidel slid the letter across the desk silently. Raul picked it up, reading with narrowing eyes. His breathing changed mildly at certain passages. His brow tightened at others. When he finished, he set it down slowly. "So," Raul said finally, "he told you the truth." Fidel frowned. "What truth?" "That he no longer agreed with our path. He said as much to me last month." Fidel's eyes snapped up. "And you said nothing?" Raul hesitated. "Che has always spoken his mind. I thought it was frustration. I didn't think he would act on it so decisively." Fidel's voice softened. "He trusted me," he said. "Enough to confide everything. Enough to walk away." Raul's gaze sharpened. "And enough to endanger us if these words ever become public." The silence that followed was suffocating. Fidel looked at the letter again. He saw not ink, but the shadow of Che's absence expanding over Cuba. "Do you know what this means?" Fidel said quietly. Raul nodded. "If this letter spreads, the revolution's unity shatters." Fidel closed his fist around the pages, crumpling them slightly. "I won't let that happen." Raul's expression tightened. "What will you do?" Fidel stared at the letter for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm, but heavy with sorrow. "I will hide it." Raul exhaled through his nose, nodding once. "It is the safest choice." But Fidel wasn't finished. "And I will pray," he muttered, almost too softly for Raul to hear, "that Che forgives me for it someday." He stood, walking toward the heavy iron safe built into the wall. He unlocked it slowly, as if performing a ritual. Inside were documents of great importance, treaties, classified reports, and now, Che's truth. Fidel placed the letter inside, staring at it for several seconds, as though memorizing the shape of his friend's handwriting even through the envelope. Then he closed the safe, turned the lock, and sealed the forbidden letter away. For a long time, Fidel didn't move. The room felt colder now, quieter, heavier. He walked to the window and looked out over Havana, the city Che loved fiercely, the dream they had built together, brick by brick, bullet by bullet. The city was waking, and Che was gone. Fidel's hand pressed against the glass. "Wherever you go," he whispered, "you will always be my brother." But brothers, he knew, did not always walk the same path. And as the morning sun rose over Havana, Fidel Castro, the leader of a nation, the guardian of a revolution, the keeper of a secret, stood alone in his office, carrying the weight of a letter that might never see the light of day. The sky was still an uneven gray when Che left the safe house, the letter now surrendered and his future already untethered. A faint drizzle clung to the air, a ghostly remnant of the previous night storm. The streets of Havana, still rubbing the sleep from their eyes, paid him no attention as he stepped into the half-light. He wore no uniform, no beret, nothing that suggested he was a man whose face hung on posters and murals across the nation. Instead, he wore simple worker's clothes, a faded shirt, patched trousers, an old cap pulled low. A pair of glasses, plain, unremarkable, rested on his nose. They were not for vision, they were for anonymity. He was not Che Guevara that morning, just a quiet man moving through the city, unseen. A final disguise for a final departure. His boots hit the wet pavement with a soft, rhythmic thud. He walked slowly, deliberately, absorbing every detail of the city he had fought to liberate. Every crack in the sidewalk, every scent of brewing coffee from a distant kitchen window, every flickering street lamp still lit from the night before. He found himself moving toward the places where memories lived. Not because it was strategic, not because it was planned, but because something inside him, something deeply human, needed to say goodbye. First, he passed the schoolyard where children would soon gather, chasing each other in circles of laughter. He paused at the metal fence, gripping the cold bars. A small girl in a blue dress was already waiting by the gate, swinging her feet, humming to herself. She couldn't have been more than 6. He felt a familiar ache. His own daughter was around that age. He closed his eyes. "Forgive me," he thought. He forced himself to walk on. A few blocks later, he reached a modest park whose benches remembered the nights he had sat there with fellow revolutionaries, debating strategy long after midnight. The trees were older now, taller. Their branches stretched toward the sky, like guardians of forgotten stories. Che walked beneath them, brushing his fingertips along the rough bark of one tree, a tree under which he had once slept while planning an operation in 1958. He remembered the faces of the young men who sat around him then. Some lived. Most didn't. The park was empty now. Only a stray dog trotted past him, sniffing at puddles. Che crouched and rubbed its head gently. "Good morning, compañero," he whispered. The dog wagged its tail. For a moment, Che allowed himself a smile, small, fleeting, but real. He continued walking. The city awakened around him. Doors opened. Vendors arranged baskets of fruit. Soldiers marched in formation down a distant avenue. A bus rumbled by, leaving a trail of diesel smoke in its wake. Together, they created routines like Guzzler's Gin, a comic sketch of domestic chaos and clever timing that sent audiences into fits of laughter. Edna handled the bookings, wrote jokes, and pushed Red harder than anyone ever had, transforming him from a streetwise performer into a star of Chicago's clubs. By 1937, they were pulling in $2,000 a week, a staggering sum during the Depression. Yet, behind the curtain, the marriage was fraying under the pressure of relentless work and fame. Red was rising, but the cost was clear. His personal life was being eclipsed by the glow of the stage lights. In these teenage years, Red Skelton honed his craft, learned the balance between pain and laughter, and discovered the transformative power of perseverance. He had faced poverty, loss, and betrayal, and yet each setback became material, each heartbreak a lesson. The boy who once sold newspapers on the streets now had the world as his stage, and he would never forget the lessons that shaped him. The hunger, the humiliation, the small triumphs. They became the foundation for every character, every gag, and every moment of joy he would later bring to millions. By 1937, Red Skelton's talent had matured into something undeniable. Chicago clubs packed their halls to see his rubber-face gags, his perfectly timed falls, and the quick-fire sketches that flowed seamlessly from Edna's sharp writing. Yet, the real breakthrough was just around the corner. Red took a gamble, joining a radio program called The Avalon Time, where he created a slow-talking, good-hearted country bumpkin named Clem Cattledehopper. The character wasn't just funny, it was revolutionary. Audiences connected instantly. Ratings soared by 30%, and stores sold Cattledehopper merchandise to eager children who repeated his catchphrases, while parents laughed along, charmed by a humor both innocent and cunning. Red had tapped into something the nation craved, humor that was kind, clever, and relatable. In 1941, NBC gave him his own show, The Red Skelton Show, broadcasting to 20 million listeners weekly. 15 minutes per episode might seem brief, but Red packed them with multiple characters, voices, and routines. Willie Lump Lump Jr., the mean little kid, each persona was alive, detailed, and vividly human. Red's comedy wasn't just for laughs. It reflected life's absurdities, its heartbreaks, and its fleeting joys. Audiences didn't just hear him, they felt him. But fame came at a cost. The relentless schedule drained him, and in 1943, during a live broadcast, Red collapsed on stage. Doctors diagnosed exhaustion, but the deeper pain stemmed from a lifelong struggle with loss. His father's absence, the hunger of his youth, and the pressure to make the world laugh all coalesced in that moment. When he returned, his comedy carried a new depth. The mean little kid became sharper, edgier, reflecting the complexities of life and the darker corners of human experience. Some listeners complained, The FCC sent warnings. Yet Red refused to compromise. Comedy, he believed, should reflect truth, no matter how messy or uncomfortable. Meanwhile, MGM noticed him. The studio signed Red initially for small roles, but it was his pantomime in Dr. Kildare's Wedding Day, 1941, that stole the spotlight. He didn't just act. He dominated the frame, blending physical rhythm, timing, and the subtle nuances of his comedy into unforgettable moments. Audiences returned again and again, drawn by a performer who could turn silence into laughter, a stumble into genius. Even as his career flourished, personal tragedy shadowed him. In 1944, news arrived that his infant son, Richard, had leukemia. Red concealed his grief on set, continuing to perform with the same painted smile that had defined his career. Off camera, he wept alone, carrying heartbreak no audience would ever see. These experiences deepened his artistry. The man who once laughed to survive now infused that laughter with empathy, sorrow, and authenticity, a reflection of a life fully lived, both on and off a stage. By the mid-1940s, Red Skelton was no longer just a radio star or a club performer. Television, still in its infancy, offered him a new canvas, and he painted it with brilliance. In 1948, The Red Skelton Show made its television debut, broadcasting to millions of Americans who were mesmerized by his ability to blend mime, slapstick, and heart. Red introduced new characters like Freddie the Freeloader, a gentle, limping hobo whose quiet charm and universal humanity touched audiences across generations. Freddie wasn't just a character. He was a reflection of the kindness, resilience, and empathy Red had learned from his own hardships. The audience adored him, but behind the scenes, life remained unforgiving. His marriage to Edna Stillwell, the woman who had guided his career and sharpened his comedy, began to unravel. Edna's affair with a producer shattered Red's personal world. The scandal was public. Red's private pain was laid bare in headlines that barely scratched the surface. Yet even amid heartbreak, he remained committed to his art, showing up to the stage in full clown makeup, masking grief with every smile, every pratfall, every joke. In 1951, CBS offered him a weekly show that would redefine television comedy. Millions tuned in to witness the fusion of Red's silent mastery and verbal wit. He created characters like Clem Cadiddlehopper and George Appleby, the henpecked husband, reflecting ordinary struggles with extraordinary humor. Red's work wasn't just entertainment. It was storytelling that mirrored life itself, the laughter and the pain, the absurdity and the tenderness. But tragedy struck again. In 1958, Red's 9-year-old son, Richard, was diagnosed with leukemia. The boy passed away just days before his birthday. For Red, the loss was immeasurable. Publicly, he remained professional. Privately, he was engulfed in grief. He briefly stopped speaking, withdrawing into silence, the same silence that had shaped his artistry in childhood. That silence became a crucible, forging a new depth in his comedy. Through characters like Freddie, Red channeled sorrow into empathy, teaching audiences that laughter could coexist with heartbreak. Despite these personal tragedies, Red's television career soared. By 1957, his show reached an astonishing 50 million viewers weekly, a testament not just to his talent, but to the authenticity of his performances. Audiences connected with the man behind the painted smile, even if they didn't know the full extent of his struggles. Through it all, Red Skelton became more than a comedian. He became a symbol of resilience, showing that the human spirit could endure loss, betrayal, and grief, and still find the courage to make others laugh. The 1960s and 70s were a period of both triumph and turbulence for Red Skelton. His television ratings remained high, but the entertainment landscape was changing. Networks pushed for edgier content, urging him to add political humor, divorce jokes, and risque sketches. Red resisted. He wasn't a rebel comic seeking controversy. He was a performer devoted to laughter that was human, heartfelt, and inclusive. His style of comedy, kind yet insightful, playful yet truthful, was timeless, even as trends shifted. Financial missteps compounded the challenges. Investments went awry, taxes piled up, and Red faced the shocking reality of owing $1.2 million to the IRS. At 60, he sold his Palm Springs estate, returning to the road to perform in casinos, theaters, and nightclubs. Behind the painted smile, he worked tirelessly, often performing exhausted, carrying decades of grief, loss, and disappointment in his voice and gestures. Friends and colleagues recognized the strain, but Red's commitment to his craft never wavered. Amid these struggles, Red found ways to reinvent himself. He returned with specials like Funny Faces in 1976, reviving beloved characters such as Clem Cattledehopper and updating his routines for new audiences. The syndication of these specials brought financial relief and reaffirmed his connection to fans. Even after losing his second wife, Georgia, to cancer that same year, he found solace in painting. Over 500 oil portraits emerged, capturing his characters, his memories, and his emotions. Through art, Red mourned, remembered, and expressed the same heart audiences had long admired on stage and screen. Red's resilience during this period wasn't just professional, it was deeply personal. The combination of relentless work, financial hardship, and profound grief shaped the man behind the laughter. Each return to the stage or television was an act of courage, a testament to his belief that laughter could heal, connect, and transcend. By facing adversity head-on, Red Skelton turned setbacks into creative fuel, leaving a legacy that was both entertaining and profoundly human. The final years of Red Skelton's life were marked by physical decline, but relentless creativity. In 1981, while performing at the Riviera Hotel in Las Vegas, Red collapsed backstage after a relapse into drinking, nearly losing his life. Yet even then, he returned to the stage not because he had to, but because performing was the essence of who he was. He filmed Freddie the Freeloader's Christmas Dinner for HBO, a simple story filled with warmth, compassion, and nostalgia. Millions watched, reminded of the gentle humanity behind the clown's painted smile. Red's health continued to decline throughout the 1980s. Lung damage from decades of smoking forced him to quit performing entirely. He retreated from public life but found new purpose in painting, producing over 50,000 works, many of which he donated to children's hospitals or museums. Art became his voice, his therapy, and his way of leaving a lasting mark. Even when broken physically, Red's spirit remained vibrant, full of humor, empathy, and creativity. Recognition followed. Lucille Ball presented him the Governor's Award at the Emmys in 1986. Ball State University awarded him an honorary degree, and the Screen Actors Guild honored him in 1987. Audiences rediscovered his work, and a generation that grew up with him rushed back to celebrate the man who had brought both laughter and heart to millions. Red Skelton passed away on September 17, 1997. Yet even in death, his work lived on. Through television archives, restored footage, and his paintings, Red remained present in the lives of fans old and new. He had transformed personal pain into art, grief into laughter, and hardship into stories that would outlive him. Red Skelton's legacy took on a new life in the 21st century. In 2013, over 200 hours of unaired kinescopes were discovered in Indiana, revealing sketches censored in the 1950s, often addressing social issues, civil rights, and humanity in ways audiences had never seen. These reels painted a fuller picture of Red, not just as a clown, but as a perceptive, deeply human artist. In October 2024, Tubi released the Red Skelton Farewell Specials, Uncensored Edition. Millions tuned in, captivated by performances that were more intimate and emotional than anything previously broadcast. The footage revealed Red crying on camera, speaking directly to viewers about his father, Joe Skelton, and his son, Richard, acknowledging grief he had long carried in private. He laughed through tears, confessed youthful missteps, and allowed audiences to see the vulnerability behind the painted smile. Restored in stunning 4K, these specials preserved subtle facial twitches, gestures, and the physical mastery that defined Red's comedy. New generations, many unfamiliar with his name, discovered the magic of a man who had survived poverty, loss, betrayal, and personal tragedy, yet never stopped giving the world laughter. It was not only a rediscovery, It was a revelation. Red Skelton, the boy from Vincennes, Indiana, had become eternal, a timeless symbol of humor, resilience, and the human spirit.
Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more dives into Hollywood's hidden history.